Welcome back to Screamers. I'm Jessie. I'm in the studio as always with Maya and Honor. This week we'll be running through the penultimate WSL games as well as an exciting championship run-in, talking all about the FA's latest decisions that have infuriated many across women's football, and we've got an exciting interview with Nicole Allison, owner of Worcester City Women. Should we get stuck in? So it was the penultimate week of WSL action this weekend. So, well, I say this weekend, kind of started earlier in the week. Lots of matches going on as we head into the very end of the season. But you guys made the arduous trip out to the very far-flung wonderland that is Dagenham and Redbridge yesterday for the Claret and Blue derby. So how was that?
Yeah, it's not actually that far, is it, Maya?
No, it was a little jaunt on the district line.
Gritted teeth there.
23 minutes on the district line for us, so I wouldn't say that's, a huge excursion. But it was a great day out. Unfortunately, the result didn't go West Ham's way.
Yeah, it's not a huge excursion when you win. It's when you lose, however.
Yeah, but I mean, in the first half, West Ham, had a lot of energy, showed character coming back from a goal down. And yeah, just the second half, things got really scrappy and Villa had their way with us.
I got told off for supporting both teams.
She wasn't supporting both teams. Maya was like...
I told her I was supporting football.
No, Maya, Villa were kind of having an attack and Maya was going, yes, come on. I was looking over at her like... Excuse me.
I know, but Villa have had so few high points this season. It's quite nice to cheer them on.
Well, don't forget where West Ham came from.
No, I agree, but I love to watch Chastity Grant and Ebony Salmon together. It's really exciting. Yeah. They're just so quick.
Also, I just will forever root for Kirsty Hansen. I just really love Kirsty Hansen.
She didn't get on the pitch yesterday, did she?
No, she tore apart another team midweek, but we'll come on to that.
We will.
How was the fortress of West Ham? Was it still promising for next season, or was it just a bit of a...
Yeah, it was definitely still promising. I think West Ham had really good chances, obviously scored 2 goals, but I think their ultimate downfall was not taking a lot of these chances, especially in the second half.
Villa have kept up their form from midweek.
Villa have decided that their season has started with 3 games to go. But before we move on to their midweek game, most important question, did you have a pot noodle and which flavour was it?
Yes, actually it was my first ever pot noodle.
Ever pot noodle?
I know, this is it was quite a shocking discovery for me as well.
I mean, to be fair, I think I have only ever really had them at Daggers, so it's not...
Can I tell you what Maya said about her first ever pot noodle? She said, it's like an English ramen.
Someone called Topjaw immediately. So Villa have decided that football is only starting now as we get to the business end of the season with a fair to say demolition of Arsenal midweek.
Yeah, did you really enjoy watching Chastity Grant and Ebony Salmon on Wednesday as well?
I started off at first when they got to 3-0 and then we scored. I was like, okay, it's fine, we'll probably get a draw. And then they just kept going and I was just like, well... fucked it, haven't we? I think everyone
I don't think it was ever looking like a draw.
No, that's really flattering yourself there.
Well, I was last season when we played Aston Villa and we won in the 98th minute or something. So I was like, maybe we'll bring it back. But actually the way we were playing, it looked like we were playing at sort of 0.8 speed and they were playing at normal speed. I don't know, we just looked really tired.
And their normal speed with Salmon and Grant
is rapid. I guess it's really difficult because it's reaching that end of the season where players are tiring and there's not many opportunities to rest players, especially if you've got a big match coming up.
Yeah, exactly.
So you want to not lose the momentum. And, there was still an outside chance that Arsenal could have snuck a sort of, last day of the season title win. I mean, that's fully dead and gone now.
Yeah.
Chelsea have officially won the WSL for I say record breaking. It's breaking their own record 6 times in a row.
A surprise to nobody.
Congratulations, Chelsea.
Congratulations, Chelsea.
They've put together a really impressive season. At times wobbly, but I think they started so strong that it was inevitable.
And the ability to grind out wins. I mean, yesterday, their game against Spurs, well, not live long in the history books.
No.
Incredibly, but also just the fun of seeing like Gura Wrighton and Sherkan Uskan in the back line. Just fine. Just
why not?
Yeah, this is what
Spurs.
you do when you're champions. I guess it's been quite reassuring for Chelsea to know that it wasn't all about Emma Hayes.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
They've still got the squad, and you can bring in a manager, and they can still run riot through the English league.
Yeah,
And actually do better in this league. Like, they haven't been beaten all season.
Well, they've got Liverpool on last day of the season, you know.
Can you imagine?
You know, we love
that.
an insane game against Chelsea. 4-3, final day of the season.
That would be really funny.
Calling
It's
it
on.
now. It's on.
on.
I mean, on the sort of evidence of yesterday, maybe not on with Liverpool. We do something about playing Everton at Anfield. Doesn't matter.
I'm sorry.
I think it was Marva Creel put out on Twitter. So it doesn't matter what either team is doing in their respective season. Both teams really commit to the bit of Everton always beating Liverpool at Anfield. And you're like,
why is that?
Honestly, I have absolutely no idea, but I don't think it'll ever change. We'll be here like 20 years in a row, and they'll still be losing to Everton. Like a random counter-attacking goal.
Yeah.
Probably still be Katja Snoy still playing.
I was gonna say Katja Snoy again.
Yeah. She is my demon. The big news out of Liverpool really before the game was that 3 players will be leaving at the end of their contract.
Yes, I saw that.
The most surprising of which was Tegan Micah.
I mean, ever since Whiteley took charge, she hasn't really had a look in. It's been Rachel Laws all of this part of the season. So
yeah, I mean, Lawsy is dependable to a point, but it's one of those, where do you get the gains? And I think we're going to start getting the gains if we change that keeper up. But the other big game of the weekend was the Manchester derby at Old Trafford.
So now we know our 3 Champions League spots for next season.
Now we know. What order? I think, can Arsenal still end up third? Could they still be a switcheroo, or is it sort of locked in now?
No, we could end up third.
Yeah. So it's definitely Chelsea, Arsenal and Man United.
Yep.
Which of Arsenal and Man United are forced to go through qualifying?
I hope not Arsenal, please, not Arsenal.
It was quite interesting because Man U knew they just needed a point from that game yesterday to lock it down, which meant that City had to go for it, and
they did.
They looked good, yeah. And it's quite funny starting to see that, like, Lauren Hempson's starting lineup.
I know, Alex Greenwood, Lauren Hemp in the starting lineup, and they've gone 2-0 up in the first half.
Yeah, it's kind of really impossible to draw any conclusions about Manchester City's season, because it's really been one that's been wrecked by injury. So it's like, you missed out on Champions League, which is really shit, but
it is really disappointing for Man City because they are such a great team. But this season just wasn't their season, was it?
No. So I'm sure when they hire a manager, or maybe when Nick Cushing does an about face and stays, who knows? Maybe he decides his future is in women's football after all.
Yes, come on, Nick, stay.
It'll be really interesting to see what's going to happen for them next season. But yeah, Man United back in the Champions League.
And London City Lionesses in the WSL.
London City Lionesses are in the WSL. Michelle Kang has finally achieved her goal.
First ever fully independent women's team to get promoted to WSL.
And she wants you to know who's driving that success.
I know Michelle is a friend of the pod, but I just think yesterday was really ominous, and maybe we should keep her in an arm's length.
Yeah.
We might be in danger if we ever criticise London City Lionesses.
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer, I think is what we're going to become. But I was there. I took a trip to Birmingham. What a vibe. I went in thinking, I'm going to be neutral, just here for fun. And then by the end, I was hooting and hollering for Birmingham.
Die hard blue nose.
Well, let's not go that far. But it was such a good... I was actually talking about this on Saturday with somebody, that not every club is at the stage where they can have their women's team playing all the games at the main ground. But Birmingham is building that, and actually getting there before the game and seeing the massive crowd. There was 9,000 in attendance, I think.
Wow, that's so
massive.
good.
Yeah, it was there was like music outside, there was a band, like people were in the stadium really early, part of which I think is because Birmingham are trialling the drinking in the stands.
Yeah.
So actually,
why not?
there were so many people in the stands before kickoff. It's like a really nice buzz about the place. Quite a crap first half, won't lie. It was one of those where, Birmingham needed the win, but didn't want to leave themselves super open because a draw or a loss, and they wouldn't do anything. So the first half was kind of dull, apart from Islana getting booed every time she touched the ball, which is very funny. And then the second half, London City Lionesses went 2-0 up, and it did look like it was going to be a sort of a whimpering end. And then an incredible fight back. The last 20 minutes of that game, everyone was on their feet the entire time. Like, it was amazing. The limbs when the 2 goals went in for Birmingham. I thought Emily Van Egmond was just going to run the whole way of the pitch. I don't know if the cameras caught it, but for the second goal, 2 Birmingham players jumped into each other and they both ended up on the floor. It was like, this deserves a promotion. But
that's a shame.
Yeah, it was not to be. But I'll be rooting for Birmingham to come up, because I think that would be such a cool away day as well. one thing that happened at the game, my girlfriend overheard two people in front of us going, "Oh, does Hannah still play football?" And the other person went, "Yeah, no, she's just won the WSL." So shout out to the family friends of Hannah Hampton in front of us, I guess. But yeah, what do we think about Michelle Kang's move? I mean, it's good. People like to say it's good for her putting money into the women's game, but it does feel a little bit cult of personality at points. I think the trophy presentation was quite strange.
Yeah, millionaire ego.
Yeah,
ego trip.
Front, like in the graphic about them being promoted, and it's just like her face surrounded by the players. Like, I don't remember you score any goals, Michelle.
I kind of loved that.
It's interesting, and to see who will. I think there's going to be a lot of players giving a thank you for your service.
But she's doing a massive clear out.
Oh,
surely.
Yeah.
She's not just going to try and stay up. It's like...
Oh, yeah. Katie McCabe will be putting pen to paper and signing for Michelle before you know it. We're finally seeing why Jenna Nicewong has been bought, and it's because Katie's heading to the Lionesses.
It will be really interesting to see what transfers they're going to make, because I reckon, they're going to have one of the most exciting windows of the WSL this summer. Yeah. However, when I went to see them at Meadow Park in that early FA game against Arsenal, they looked great. They were really quick, really strong. They looked like a really sort of terrifying side, actually.
Yeah.
So I think, they've also got some great young players, like Taya Goldie, for example, was there.
Who went off on crutches again yesterday, I think.
God.
So hopefully that's not another injury for her.
I hope not.
I'm just very excited, and I hope she's not one of the players let go. It's exciting for Chantal Boy-Halorka to come up to WSL, because she's a fantastic player, and I'm really excited for that. But yeah, next season, Birmingham. Next season's yours.
So, as you might know, every week we pick our Screamer of the Week, which is, in our eyes, the greatest goal from across the women's game. Maya, you just took the win last week with an impressive amount of votes for Mariona Caldente.
Activated
Super
Arsenal.
Mario.
Yeah.
Don't take it away from her, guys.
Or is it Clutch
It was an excellent.
Dente.
It was an excellent goal.
It was all of the Versus writers defending their captions. That's what it was.
An honourable mention for Esme Morgan, who scored her first goal in the NWSL and then actually ended up scoring a brace in that game.
Crazy.
For Washington Spirit. They did actually lose the game to Angel City, and
it was Sandy McIver's first game for Washington Spirit. So I think Esme Morgan kind of felt her bestie's presence on the pitch and was like, "Shirley, I'm going to score for you." And then they could celebrate together, which was really cute.
That's really cute.
But my Screamer, I have to say, like, I don't think there were that many Screamers this week. Like, so my one is a bit unorthodox, but it's Grace Clinton's header in the Manchester derby. Partly, it was an absolutely great header.
And headed
It
Screamer.
was great.
That's
it was great.
It was a headed Screamer. But the
in our ground rules before, I'm sure Jessie has said no headers.
I don't
Jessie
know.
just has loads of rules for herself.
Yeah, I would never seek to
enough.
impose that on anybody else.
The thing that
I just think headers
Oh
aren't
no,
often
that's
Screamers.
not like you.
the thing that I loved the most about it was when it went in and she fell to the ground, she like slapped the floor.
Yeah, that was good.
And I just thought it was so funny, like a sort of cowboy. I loved it.
I enjoyed that as well.
I liked Mallard and Turlin's little dancing as well for their
really
second
cute.
goal. Who are you picking, Honor?
I'm going to go with Isabel Goodwin's goal for London City Lionesses. It was just, classic banger. Loved it.
Yeah, it was a great goal. That was my honourable mention. My honourable mention and my Screamer were both from the game yesterday. And my head said Isabel Goodwin is the better goal. But my heart could not avoid picking Cho So-hyun for the equalising goal for Birmingham, which was just this like ridiculous out of nowhere volley. The cross came over and just sort of scooped it up and over, and that was the goal. Then I think it might actually have been Cho So-hyun who like peeled away and jumped into a defender, and then they were both rolling around on the floor. So just for the limbs and the volleying.
Nice.
That's my Screamer of the week.
Love that.
So we will put the clips of those goals up on Instagram for those who haven't seen, and then you'll be able to vote on Spotify and on Instagram stories for the Screamer of the week. But from Maya we have
Grace Clinton.
From Honor we have
Isabel Goodwin.
And from me we have Cho So-hyun.
So this week saw the FA do a U-turn on their policy for trans people in football. Having only released their guidelines a couple of weeks ago, they're now banning all trans people from football. They're saying it's in response to the recent Supreme Court ruling, which we're all completely opposed to. And also there's no kind of stipulation that they have to now change their rules, but they have decided to. And it's coming into effect on the 1st of June. I have to say, I'm not sure in sort of light of this, how they can say anymore that they sort of stand for football for all.
Yeah.
And also that they said themselves on Thursday that less than 30 trans players are registered with the FA. So it just seems like, I mean, they're putting an awful lot of resource into this for less than 30 people who are just trying to enjoy themselves and play a sport they love.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's like, obviously it feeds into a much wider conversation about the increasing exclusion of trans people and trans women specifically from public life and sport and community. So its impact is much more wide reaching. But when you think about the actual, so it's people playing in an FA affiliated league, so there's lots of football that isn't, but it is, I've seen, between 20 and 30 people. This is about stopping 25 women from playing football. And at the end, like, is that what we want our national governing body of sport to be doing? You couldn't even field a fully fledged 11-a-side game between the amount of trans women that play in FA leagues. Exactly. None of them play at a professional level. Not that would in any way justify this call, but this is very much amateur level. This is women finding teams that are welcoming them, and the FA loves to talk about the benefits of playing football and the benefits of community and how good sport is for mental health and a sense of inclusion. And we've just decided that actually a community who are already going through it and are probably most in need of community connection, sport, all of the benefits that come from football, we've decided that actually no, we're going to
penalise them.
Very clearly, we're just waiting for an opportunity, I would say, to do so.
Yeah, I mean, it's really disgusting actually seeing the people who have been sort of crowing with delight since the FA have come out with it. It's so hard. It's hard to see how they could, like you say, still kind of believe or even stand by the fact that they're trying to make football for all or bring joy in community when there is nobody that benefits from this.
No.
In the women's game, it's all grassroots amateur football, which we all do for community, for connection, for fun. Yeah. And that's just been taken away from a community in need. And it just, it is horrible.
And they love to tout the sort of the safety and fairness line. I would say in all of my years of playing football, the moments where I have felt unsafe on a pitch has never been anything to do with playing with trans people.
Yeah, or against them, exactly.
Yeah, it is, it's grassroots football, so there's varying levels of skill going on. It's, it's the lack of quality of pitches. It is a physical game where just things sometimes happen.
Yeah, the very nature of football is that people have different abilities and different strengths. We talk about this all the time. Just because someone is a trans woman doesn't mean that they're going to be dangerous or...
Yeah, I mean, inherent within it is just a misogyny.
It's misogyny and transphobia, isn't it, all wrapped together. And I do think, like, we talk about, other things in football, like racism, misogyny, pay discrepancy, all that kind of thing. Like, that's what the FA should be concentrating on. Yep. That's the stuff that is actually going to help women in football. Yeah. This is not going to help any of us.
No, there are genuine things they could do to improve the safety of women in football. Like, look at the scandals they've been with coaches in relationships with players, abuses of power. Like,
This really is not something that they are doing to make anything safer for anybody.
No, it's just a massive delusion which we see all over the world of transphobia. It's just like people making things up in their mind and projecting these ideas that they have about trans people on real life situations, and
it just don't exist.
It's just full of hate and not full of anything to do with reality at all.
For people who don't have maybe friends or relationships with people who are trans, it's so easy to get swept up in what you're being told by the media, and why would you question what is being repeated everywhere in every single touch point on the news, in newspapers, like online. It's so difficult for people to sort of see through that. I mean, we're quite lucky in our experience of grassroots football has been very inclusive in multiple different ways, and part of that has been it's very trans inclusive, and playing with trans players only makes us better, both as footballers but as people. Think about it, we talk about the ban on women playing football for 50 years and how much that held the game back, and this will be seen in the same way.
Exactly. Football should just be for everyone. It should be a place where we can all feel safe, we can all feel happy, we can all feel connected. And at Screamers, we firmly oppose the ban and are really disgusted with the FA. It goes without saying, but we stand in solidarity with all of our trans siblings. And we've reached out to football teams across the UK also for their messages of support.
Hi, this is Ex-Girlfriend FC. We just want to say that we'll always make space for our trans siblings. Our stance on the FA affiliated leagues remains the same. We won't ever be involved because they aren't inclusive, and football should be for all. We love you, we're here for you, and we just want to see you on the pitch soon.
Brockwell United want to send so much love to our trans and non-binary players and siblings. We love having you on our teams. We love playing against you, and you will always be welcome with us. Big love.
Since 1986, Hackney Women FC has proudly created a space where LGBTQIA+ players can play the game that they love. This decision is not just a policy change, it's a direct threat to the values we fought to uphold for nearly 4 decades. For the Hackney Cubs specifically, our development team would not be what it is without trans players. Trans players have always and will always continue to be welcomed at Hackney and within the Cubs team specifically.
Hi, we're Jokes FC, and we wanted to send out lots of love and solidarity to the trans community. Trans people have and always will be welcomed and cherished members of our team regardless of any changes to the rules. So the FA and the SFA can just bug off, really.
Hi, this is A Sisterhood FC, and we stand in full solidarity with our trans siblings in the face of the FA's disgraceful decision this week. Football is for everyone, and that means trans people belong on and off the pitch. We believe in an inclusive, joyful, and just game where every player feels safe, welcome, and celebrated. And to our trans teammates, friends, and community, we see you, we love you, and we've got your backs always. A Sisterhood is with you.
Sending love and solidarity from Bays FC. We love all of our trans siblings, friends, family, and fellow footballers. Football's our sport, and you're always welcome to play with us. Hope everyone's taking care of themselves, and hopefully see you all out on the pitch sometime soon.
At TBCFC, we reject the FA's shameful decision to ban trans women from the game. We send our love and solidarity from Wales and will continue to fight for trans rights both on and off the pitch and across the borders. You will always be welcome to play with and against us. Love from the team here at TBCFC.
Everyone at Whippets FC is sending love and support to the trans community, especially those women who've been left without a safe space to play football as a result of this ridiculous FA ban. We stand with you, and we'll be doing what we can to protest this, because football should just be for everyone. End of story.
So a couple of days ago, we had the pleasure to speak to Nicole Allison, who is, as Jessie mentioned, the owner of Worcester City Women. It was really fascinating talk, so let's play it for you now.
We're so excited to have a very special guest this week, Nicole Allison, who is the owner of Worcester City Women's Football Club and one of the very few sole female owners of a women's football club in the world. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you very much. How are you guys?
We're very good. Thank you so much for coming on, and congratulations on staying up this season and your amazing 5-0 win last weekend.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was a nice way to round off our first season in the National League, which, you know, as predicted, was a challenge. It was always going to be tough to go into Tier 4 because it is a big jump on and off the pitch. What a lot of people don't realise is that when you're in Tier 5 regional league, you finish your league quite often right at the end of May, and then you start the season in Tier 5 again in September. But if you get promoted, which of course we did, which is fantastic, we then had to start our season mid-August, which meant we started pre-season 3 to 4 weeks earlier than what we normally would do, right? So the 5-0 win last Sunday was just a really nice way of rounding off a challenging but really also very valuable season, because we learnt a huge amount. And now there's a little bit of time for rest. And I say a little bit because I do tell the coaches and everybody else to go off, like, don't think about Worcester City Women for at least 2 to 3 weeks. But of course, I can't really do that. But I am looking forward to a holiday at some point in June. The players have been fantastic. And one of our key things last season was that we wanted to give every player who played last season and won the league for us last season a chance to play in Tier 4. And we did that, and I'm really proud of that, because I think it's quite easy in football to be quite dismissive season to season and sort of say, well, actually, we don't think you're good enough, so forget what you've kind of done, and we need to just put winning at all costs absolutely at the forefront. And that's not like us. It's not one of our core values. You know, it's about looking after people, and I felt that everybody deserved a chance to, you know, have a new focus into Tier 4, and you know, many of those players have then really been able to step up and take on that challenge, and have probably surprised themselves, you know, and more so than anybody else. And so that's, you know, a really proud moment for the club as well. And we've always been very focused on bringing through the youth, so giving opportunities to young players. So yeah, very proud of the way that we've stuck to our principles and our values as well, and remained in the league.
Yeah, and it's really interesting hearing you talk about kind of core values and principles, because I feel like on this podcast, every week we're talking about another team that's been let down, whether that's kind of through a lack of support or a lack of transparency. Just last week, obviously, with Wolves, who found out on the last day of the season that the club hadn't even applied for their promotion into the Championship, even if they had got promoted. I mean, how kind of important is it when you're starting a football club in kind of establishing those core values and principles right from the start, and also letting those players know straight away that that's kind of what you stand for?
I think it's everything. You know, you can't, in my opinion, you can't do anything without those values and without the vision and the purpose of any organisation, and certainly in a football club, because you need the right people on board to take things forward. So to find those right people, you have to be really clear as a club as to what's important to us. You know, these are our principles. These are the way that we're going to do things. We also recognise that we need to adapt, because it's not a straight line to there. There's lots of curveballs that come in, you know, throughout. But that's how you get people bought into the journey, into the vision. That's how I've grown a completely volunteer-led organisation to the point that we, you know, now are 4 years on. Is because there's a vision, there's a journey, there's a purpose to our football club, and it's beyond trophies and winning all the time. It's far greater than that. And I think evidence of that for us this season has been, you know, we've gone from Tier 5 winning the league, where we won the vast majority of our games and quite comfortably in Tier 5 as well. So, you know, we were winning maybe 3-4, 5-0 in a lot of those games, to then coming into Tier 4, where actually the weekend where we just won 5-0 was our first league home win of the season. And so despite there being more defeats than there have been victories this season, our average attendance was the third highest in the league. Fundamentally, our fans are part of this club, and that is very much down to our core values. And players want to come and play for an independent women's football club that's in control of their own destiny, where you're not going to have some of these issues that we've seen before, and obviously, you know, like you said, Maya, it seems to be happening every week. And they want to play for a club that is dedicated to growing women's football, and that's exactly what we are. And from the moment that I, you know, took over the club, that's been absolutely at the core and through all of our messaging and our narrative. You know, it's about empowering women and girls actually to not just play football, but to work in football. I never knew I could be a owner of a football club. I didn't even know, like when I was growing up and playing, that, you know, you could work in finance or marketing or operations like that. I just never saw that. So I want to try and tell more girls, particularly in our local area in Worcestershire, that is possible. And hopefully we're a club that in a few years can become professional and employ lots of local people to do that.
Yeah, it's really amazing, and it sounds like it's great for both fans and players to be part of a club that's independent and kind of doing its own thing and changing things for the next generation. You've spoken a lot about, you know, not having opportunities to play football when you're younger, and not knowing about these kind of roles even existing or being available for women. How do you think Worcester City Women is actually changing that for the younger generation? In Worcester, especially.
Yeah, and we want it to go nationally and internationally. Hopefully, you know, in the future, if we do things right, which we are doing, you know, so far, we become a bit of that case study and a blueprint to how to run a football club properly. So when I first came in 4 years ago, there wasn't a single female on the coaching staff whatsoever. So one of the first things that I wanted to do was start to put processes and procedures in place to ensure that we did bring in and open up and create those opportunities for all genders, you know, particularly those females to come in to the club, so that throughout our pathway, young girls had female coaches and role models there in their space. We have a brilliant workforce that are dedicated and focused to the growth of the women's game. You know, a great story actually, and one I'm really proud of, is in my first year, brought in a coach called Jodie Williams, who was coaching at Wolves women at the time, I think in the reserves. She was from Worcestershire. When I came back to Worcester and started the club, I instantly went to see what Jodie was doing, and I gave her the opportunity to manage our first team in that first season in Tier 5. And after that first season in charge, she actually got offered a full-time job at Fulham. And I think after a couple of years, she then moved to Everton. So she went from being a volunteer coach, with us, to then working full time in the women's game at Fulham and Everton, and really kind of, kick-started her career, which is something I'm, incredibly proud of. So again, it's about creating that environment of people supporting people, as opposed to, me throwing money at a wall and hoping it sticks. That's never been the strategy that I think would work, and it'll never be what we do.
I love that. I think we often think about clubs as developing players, but I love that of like coaches being developed as well, and going off in their career, and almost like this wider Worcester network around women's football. And it's so cool to hear about everything about the club. But I guess maybe jumping back in time a little bit, this isn't your first role in football, is it? You've worked elsewhere in the industry. Would you mind talking us through sort of how you arrived at Worcester before you came here?
Yeah, great question. So I've always been a player, and kind of got pushed down the coaching route because that's what you did. I'm nearly 40 now, so that's what happened when I was kind of playing football in the early 2000s. It was like, oh, go and do some coaching, and I did enjoy the coaching, but it was never going to be a career for me. But I think throughout doing my undergrad, which by the way was in European Studies and German, so it's a bit
very applicable.
Naturally,
yeah. It was around then that I started learning about different football clubs and the way that they ran off the pitch, and sort of fan culture and those sorts of things. And I actually wanted to try and see if I could get a job within the industry just to start getting experience. And I actually wrote, back in those days, you wrote to people rather than emailing. Like, you could email, but it didn't really have the same effect. So I actually wrote to like every sports company I could find in London to say what I was doing and who I was, and would they give me a chance. And I got a couple of offers in the end, but stayed with a sports research company, Kantar Sport. So it was part of Kantar Media, which was actually part of WPP, a big advertising agency. So I got a 6-month contract, research assistant contract. And after the 6 months, they asked me to stay on a full-time contract, which was brilliant. And that really was just opening the doors then to the industry for me. I met so many people. From there, I got a job at the English Football League. So I was at the English Football League for 3 years, working with the 72 clubs to support them become a little bit more commercially focused. Learned a hell of a lot about how football clubs are ran. And then from there, decided I have some opportunities to do some consulting. I'd built enough kind of network. And at this time, I had also been watching Spurs women kind of go through the pyramid and do really well. I'm a Tottenham fan. Got back late last night from watching Spurs in the Europa League semi-final. I'd naturally just gone and watched Spurs women as a fan just to sort of see how they were doing. And I remember thinking, who is running this off the pitch? Like, you could see Karen and Juan were the coaches. You could see all of that. But off the pitch, it was like, who's doing anything here? And I knew a few people at Tottenham. So I actually just emailed and said, what's going on, and I'm consulting, and they said it'd be great if you could help us. So that's how that started, and very quickly I got offered the full-time general manager role at Tottenham Hotspur Women, as they just entered into WSL 2, which is obviously now the Championship. So as a Tottenham fan growing up, and then wanting to work in women's football, to then
dream job,
absolute dream job, yeah. And I was there for 2 and a bit years. We obviously got promotion into the WSL. It was actually 6 years ago yesterday, to the date anyway, that we got our draw away to Villa in the evening, that we needed to secure second spot, which got us promotion, because that was the season that they allowed 2 to go up.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolute career highlight, one of them anyway for me, to see Tottenham get promoted. But I left Tottenham again to go back to consultancy and really kind of focus on developing, growing women's football worldwide, because being at Tottenham, I'd learned so much, but I also felt a little bit like I was quite restricted in what I could really do. And that was where really the idea of owning my own football club was born, because I kept thinking, if I could just own this and do this my way. So it makes me sound like a real control freak, but I'm not.
We believe you, don't worry. We believe you.
Yeah, I guess I just saw the opportunities, saw the potential, and COVID was another big factor and a catalyst for me coming back to Worcester, because everything, all resources in football was put into men's football to ensure that it could continue, and women's football was kind of like forgotten about. And history tells us that when a club is struggling financially, it's the women's team that gets pushed aside and says, no, sorry, we can't afford you anymore. And to me, it really highlighted our dependency on the men's game as women's football. And I just felt like that isn't the way we want to go. We don't just want to see a Premier League of women's football. We don't just want to see the same women's teams that are connected to their men's clubs, because ultimately that doesn't allow them to grow sustainably on their own 2 feet. And we've seen with Reading, we've seen, Notts County years before. I started looking at clubs that I thought maybe I could help. Naturally, you look at your home city and everything just aligned, basically. I was like, this is actually really what I want to do, and where I think there's just so much opportunity. It's actually got a rich sporting heritage, but not really anything at the high level. And I just thought, what I want to do is leave that legacy and have a professional football team in Worcester, but it be the women's, and everybody in the city, really kind of be proud of that, and us be a case study worldwide as to you can do this, and you can do it on your own. And that's what we're focused on doing. And 4 years in, we've certainly made a lot of progress. You can imagine there's still a long way to go. But by, again, going back to those core values and core objectives, that's what's pulling us through, and that's what's continuously ensuring that the boat is always moving, in that right direction, despite the curveballs that do come into play.
It's really interesting hearing you talk about kind of what can happen to a women's club when it's affiliated to a men's team. And I think we talk a lot on the podcast about how the women's game is a separate entity to the men's game and should sort of be treated as such. And kind of at a time when the WPLL are proposing lots of new kind of ways or structures to kind of grow the game, I wondered whether you resonate with that thing about the women's game being treated as a separate entity, and also kind of from your experience, what you think is really crucial to kind of make sure we remember when we're kind of thinking of how to grow the game at this time of massive change.
Yeah, I definitely think it's important to recognise it's a different product, and the athletes are different and have different needs. So whilst, obviously I'm an owner of an independent club, and I feel like independence is a really great route to go, I'm not then saying that you can't be, part of a wider team. Of course, when I joined Tottenham, there was absolutely no way that we could have been an independent entity to Tottenham Hotspur. The brand is so big and powerful, and actually we wanted to be part of that. And that sort of shows the differences. It can work in both ways, but regardless, you still recognise the women's team as a separate product, because it is different in so many ways. And I think a lot of people that work in the women's side of clubs that are connected to a wider parent club, some of the common frustrations are that they feel like they're firefighting all the time and having to beg, borrow in order to just get some of the basic things, and even if that's space at the training ground. So you need people that are going to be at the top leading, that understand why you need the differences, so that then the people that are actually working don't have to add this layer of beg, steal, borrow, and convincing that it's the right thing to do, but also that it's got a good business sense to it. And I think it's, naturally it takes time, because obviously for so long, women in leadership positions, it just hasn't really been the case, particularly in football. So it's going to take time as we build our leaders and we create opportunities for them, for us to see perhaps some of those changes, but it will come. And, again, that's why it's so important that we empower our younger generation and also our current players.
I really love the kind of how you're prepared to go slowly, and it's not about rushing progress. And, if you try too hard to rush progress, there's possibilities that things would go wrong.
Sustainable, isn't it?
Yeah, but looking ahead, and, your dreams and aspirations, what is your ideal future for Worcester City Women?
The dream will be to have our own training ground and stadium that's purpose built for us, but also for women's sports teams as a whole. And naturally, I'm looking 10 years ahead to the World Cup, and how great it would be to have a facility that was able to host a World Cup game, or at least host a country in their training. Worcester's in a great location, centre of the country, really great transport links. So yeah, it's very much on our roadmap of that's where we want to be. That is utopia for me. I think that is true legacy. When, for example, matchday experience, when you're trying to create the best matchday experience possible, we aren't in control of what we can do with our matchday experience, at all times. So owning our own facility that will allow us to really kind of make it work for what the people want is something I won't rest until I've done that. And then we want to try and keep that local talent in the area. So, developing facilities like that, I think is key.
It's exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. I've got an amazing team of people, around me, again, all volunteers who are just incredibly passionate about women's football, about the city. I'm so excited to launch our new kits for next season, because obviously I'm biased, but they're some of the best new kits that I've ever seen. We've gone very much around kind of the link to the city, and really trying to build that community feel, but also it being very, very much around kind of, fashionable and something that people would want to walk down the street wearing. So I'm very excited to...
Well, we might have to get a new shirt.
Did you see the excitement across all of our faces there? We're big lovers of kits on Screamers, so I think we'll have to get three in order as soon as they're ready to pre-order. I think.
Yeah, well, I'll as soon as they are, I'll be letting you guys know. But yeah, I think you'll love them.
Amazing. It's so cool to hear like how foundational like improving and bettering the community is to the club. Like what you're doing at the club is amazing. What you're doing for the community and the wider grassroots girls football in the city is so cool to hear about, because not enough clubs are taking that seriously, and I think you are really leading the way, and the impact it will have for generations is going to be so cool. I think that's all. Could talk all day, but I think that's all we have time for, unfortunately. But thank you so much for coming on, Nicole. It's been amazing to hear from you, and hopefully I think we're already planning to come down and watch a Worcester game at some point next season. So
in our new shirts.
Our new shirts.
So yeah, be great to come and support in person.
Brilliant. Yeah, well, I very much look forward to that. So yeah, let's keep in touch, and look forward to inviting 3 new Worcester City women fans to the club.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
Has anybody got anything for the Woso Community Noticeboard this week?
I think on a similar vein to what Jessie was saying about Liverpool releasing a few players, and also this is in stark contrast to what Nicole was saying about Worcester City Women, is that I saw that Forest have had a massive clear out and they're releasing probably like a full 11
Oh my God,
or starting
really?
them from their team.
Wow.
And I just thought, after speaking to Nicole, I really respected what she had to say about making progress, respecting your players and appreciating what they've done for you.
Yeah.
And I know Forest really want to push on and rise up the championship, and the owner, Marinakis, I know has ambitions to join the WSL as soon as possible. But it just feels I really don't like that. I think these players helped you win the league.
Yeah.
And you dominated the league. Surely you can give more of them a chance in the championship.
I was talking about this actually on Sunday with my girlfriend, and because I was saying a similar thing. I was like, oh, that's quite shitty to drop those players that have brought you on this journey. And she made a very good point of because Forest are part-time now, aren't they? Are they fully professional?
They're fully professional.
Oh, so this is the thing we were wondering, because when teams move from tier 3 to tier 2 and they go from part-time to professional, it might be the case of like
some players might not want to.
Might not want to leave their job. But I didn't realise that Nottingham Forest were fully professional.
Yeah, I understand that, and maybe some players will move to other Midlands teams like Wolves, who are not full-time.
I mean, why would you go to Wolves now?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. But I mean, if they want to keep this balance of having a job and also being a footballer, then that might be an option. But I just get the feeling that most of those players, it's not the case in their situation.
Yeah. I thought they were part time. I didn't realise that, because you might have jobs and other obligations keeping you, but jettison the people that have brought you to an invincible season is quite difficult.
It's a bit icky, isn't it?
It is a bit icky. It doesn't feel good.
Have you got anything, Jessie?
Just a quick one. FIFA is funding a study by, is it the University of Kingston, I think, into the link between menstruation and menstrual health and ACL injuries.
I saw that, yeah.
They're going to be tracking, I can't remember how many players it is, but they're going to be tracking players over sort of a quite long, I imagine it'll be a very long time before we get any results out of the study. But I just thought it quite interesting that it's been something that's hypothesised as maybe having a link to the prevalence of ACL injuries, but no one's ever actually studied it. So regardless of what the outcome is, it's just quite interesting that there's some funding and some genuine research going into it.
It's really good to see that actually starting.
So that's my little bit for the notice board. What's yours, Maya?
Mine is did you see that Midge Purse made her debut on Broadway?
Oh my God, I did see. And I heard
she did the opening monologue of Chicago on Broadway.
I heard that wasn't enough for her, so she asked for a bigger part. So she had like another bit as well, where she was reading something else out during the play.
So in the spirit of Midge Purse on Broadway, I thought we could think about who from the WSL we would like to see in what role. So my one is Katie McCabe as the Artful Dodger, and Chloe Kelly as one of the like ragtag boys in her crew.
Oliver.
Yeah. No, not Oliver, because Chloe Kelly's a bit too cheeky for Oliver. Oliver would be someone like Esme Morgan.
I think this is going to be a point where I really show up my lack of musicals knowledge, because I'm like, really, who would be in Les Mis? Who could be? It feels like really.
Oh, someone French.
Someone French. He would be like Javert and Jean Valjean if you're casting from the WSL.
Oh, this is hard.
Maybe like Lucy Bronze.
Chasing after a speedy winger. Lucy Bronze is Javert, just constantly finding. You stole a loaf of bread, slash an assist. You stole an assist from right underneath me. Oh, you could do a version of Six all about Chelsea. Now that they've won their sixth WSL.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Having never seen the plot, having never seen the musical, don't know how applicable that is.
I haven't seen it either, but I do know it's about Henry VIII's 6 wives.
So would that mean like, would you have to call back Emma Hayes?
I think you should do Six, the musical of London City Lionesses, because they are going to get divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. And Michelle Kang's Henry VIII.
Nothing will top that. There we go.
That's all we've got time for on Screamers this week, but come back next week where we'll be reacting to the final WSL matches of the season and making our FA Cup final predictions. But until then,
follow us on Instagram, TikTok, all the socials at @screamers_pod, or email us at screamerspod@gmail.com.
Or follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is you're listening to know when new episodes drop. And please, if you can, rate and review.
Bye.
Bye.